to the presentation of Alexander, which is our last presentation for today. And yeah, I'm really actually also happy that we have very diverse crowd also here, right? Because people have different different background, and that's interesting to learn from each other. So floor is yours. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Alexander, and I'm teaching at the Moscow Architecture School March. It is a relatively new school. We are just 8 years old. It's a private school, which is working in academic partnership with the London Metropolitan University. We have two basic programs, Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts, and also lots of different short-term courses for those who want to extend their qualification and to get new skills and so on. We used British architectural program to develop our own, and technically our students receive the degrees from London Met. And what I'd like to talk about is to present you the way we address the idea of the role of architecture in contemporary world. I guess it is a little bit different from the mainstream topic of the seminar, and well, maybe there'll be lots of questions, maybe not too much afterwards because of that. March is best described as an artistic school, and a kind of school that is looking for an autonomy of architecture as an intellectual and artistic practice. It all started as an alternative to architecture and urban strategies that forms contemporary Moscow. These are just some examples. But to generalize this, I would say that the Moscow and Russian architecture is dominated by a combination of heavily charged ideological approach, and the building process informed mostly by technology and economy rather than by anything else. And the school itself is situated in a renovated industrial area, not really far from the center, but Moscow is quite large. As I was saying before, we think we place the role of architecture in its juxtaposition of two economical, technological, and managerial nature of contemporary architecture and urbanism. And we're trying to delineate the field of architectural imagination and creative research to build a critical position through distancing from the business as usual models. On next slides, I'll give you some examples of that, like this one. This was an exercise in which we asked students to imagine a city based on Italo Calvino novel, Invisible Cities. It was an exercise which intended to help.
Which one?
Sorry?
Which one you said? Which example from virtual?
Italo Calvino, Invisible Cities.
Okay.
Yeah, they took. I don't know if you know this novel. It's a series of short notes about imaginable cities that are not really existent, each having a very particular nature, and but they were only described in words. Students were asked to try to understand the nature of life in the cities and to imagine how they might look like. The idea was to help them to develop a separate and kind of independent understanding of what a city, of cities, of what a city might be. It happened in the middle of the year, and by the end of the year, they had to come up with some projects of building, quite regular projects. But an important thing is that we consider the process of education with all these experiments to have a transformative power of its own. Even if final projects pay their dues to the conventional professional understanding of what architecture does, we try to organize the process in the way that students' minds and perception would be transformed. We tend to attract students' attention to different kind of voids, like in this exercise, but not only in cities. In this case, it's the study of voids in Venice, Berlin, Bologna, and Matera. Matera is a small village described in one of the novels by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. But basically, I would say that the idea of voids left by different approaches is what attracts us. So how we can fill these voids with architecture as an artistic and intellectual practice. And it also means that we very oftenly we cross borders between architecture and other arts, like performance in this example. Of course, all sorts of visual arts, literature, poetry, filmmaking, and so on. And we try also to interpret education as a practice and present a new mode of education, well, new for Russia, at least. We do things that no other architecture schools in Russia do, like open creeds, exhibitions in museums and galleries outside of the school, publishing projects, and organizing public events, not only for architects, but also for general public. And this year, like many schools around the world, we had to switch to the virtual world and produced a virtual exhibition. And I will show you a couple of examples of what we do from this exhibition. Just a second. Yeah, here it is. So the school is quite small. We have around 120 students in all of the programs. And I will just show you a couple of studios from the last year. I'll start with this one. I'm sorry, everything is in Russian. Unfortunately, we cannot afford translation.
No problem, but the visuals are.
Yeah, but I will try to summarize the ideas of the studios. So the first one is called Novgorod. It's a studio of final year of a bachelor's program. And students were asked to design an extension for the 18th century building in St. Petersburg. Here it is, a very long structure that was built from 12 equal elements. And the idea of dealing with the problem of extension was based on the idea of having students thinking very carefully about personal style connected with the style of the original building. Students studied a lot of precedents of extensions. And the most important part was to transform their understanding of style in a specific building, with of course, but also to think very carefully about the element that joins the old and new. So they had to study the original building and to design a specific place in which the new and the old would join together. Through this, the idea of style had to be seen as a very material problem, not just visual, but a very material thing. This is now another studio that I wanted to show you was also based not in Moscow, but in Akademgorodok, which is a very small city established in the the 20th century in Siberia as a science center. And it's a kind of a monument to the post-war Soviet urbanism with all its modernist ideas. But its integrity has been already damaged, of course, by new developments and the kind of sort of decay of the original plan and the original buildings. Students were asked to look for the new opportunities in this existing environment and to suggest something that could be a continuation of this story. Another title for the studio was The New Season, like in TV series. So this is one of the examples. The idea of this project was to use children's point of view, children's perception of city, to look at the city from a different angle through this. And it resulted in a series of buildings, sort of a network of children attractions, and synchronized with the natural surrounding that is playing a huge role in this city. And the next one, the next two studios which I wanted to share with you are coming from the master's program. The first one is the Rethinking Beauty, is a studio which is a part of a long series of rethinking studios which was started by the founder of the school, Eugene As. And Rethinking Beauty implied looking into different ways of how beauty being manifested through art, nature, architecture, and lots of other things. And the personal idea of beauty had to be transformed into a certain building. Like in this example, it's an institute of transhumanism, an imaginary academic and cultural institution that should serve for people who are developing the philosophy of transhumanism. And the last one also from the master's level, the studio which was entitled New Primitives. And the idea of the studio was to study the vernacular from different angles, including traditional architecture, sort of modern vernacular, like these materials, and also vernacular in social organization. And the results were, for example, this settlement placed on the river Amur, which is famous for regular floodings. And it's a village placed on these floating platforms. Each platform represents a certain typology of buildings. Yeah, that's the map of the place. And the city can exist in two forms. One is when all the platforms are gathered together and they form one space, but another one is kind of more suited for times like this, is when all the platforms are floating on a distance from each other and people are less connected. Well, I would say that that's basically it. Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
For the link in the chat. Maybe I would like to add to this that our reaction to the problems of today's moment wasn't only this exhibition, but we also organized a series of conversations with the architectural educators from all over the world, and from United States, United Kingdom, and Switzerland, and many other places, and discussing the way architectural education could be changed because, or using COVID as an excuse for change. And these most of these conversations were in English, so you can find them on our YouTube channel. And well, if you want to join the conversation in some way, maybe connecting me directly, or well, I don't know.
Yeah, you post a link to the chat also.
Yeah, I
That
will
would be
do
great.
this. Of course. Yeah, that's basically everything that I wanted to show you.
Wow. Thanks so much.
Very interesting, especially for me. It was interesting about Akademgorodok because I was born there and spent
Really?
like,
Wow.
12 years of my life there, my childhood. So it's very like interesting to see this all. And do you know if this project, if one of these things will be realized, or like what is the future of this, all this work?
Well, I doubt that they could be realized, but the studio worked with some people from Akademgorodok, from a group of people who are trying to assign a heritage status to the city, and they traveled to the place and communicated with many people on the site, and they were invited to participate in the final presentations, which were also online. So yeah, the connection was tight, but I don't think that anything could be realized.
Okay. But it's super interesting. I will make sure to share it with all my, I don't know, friends and
Yeah,
people.
of course. So, yeah, so everything is still on this website, which you can get also on the chat, but at the same time,
Maybe both of you could explain what Akademgorodok is, because it's very interesting concept of the city, right? Built in the forest and in the middle of, I mean, not nowhere, but it's very remote.
Yeah, it's a small city built for scientists near Novosibirsk, and it's still, I think, for a very long period, like maybe till late 80s, 90s, it was closed, right? Was it?
No, it was not closed. It was, but it was so much focused on science and students that not many people like from other cities went there, just because there was no reason. But it was never closed. It was, I think, built in 50s, 60s, like this utopian project.
Yeah, 1950.
To bring the best scientists, to give them good living conditions, to give them flats for like high level academic. They gave them half of houses or houses. They had very high quality of life. The shops had better food there, etc. And then they also built a university, a lot of institutes. So it became kind of this hub, which, for example, now Moscow and Russia are trying to create these hubs artificially, like in Skolkovo and in some different areas. This is like what originally was there, and there is a huge scientific school already there and very strong. And this university is in the middle of Russia, so a lot of people from other regions of Russia go there who are not close to Moscow. And then it became, I think, when I was growing up, it became more a student city in a way, and the city and the place for upper middle class and middle class people, because it's half an hour by car from the big city. So a lot of families live here because it's full of pine woods. There is a water reservoir there. There are a lot of, I don't know, schools for children, and you can easily get your children go alone to school. And it's like very comfortable way of living, and the university is strong. And actually interesting fact that I think in the 80s, it became an interesting cultural spot, hub, because it was far away from central of Russia. And a lot of musicians and people who were like kind of banned in the central part of Russia, they went there and they were free to perform. And my parents remember telling me that they listened to, I don't know, to Tsoi, and Russian people here know who he is, and listened in the hall of the university, and it was a very interesting mixture of academic and cultural, I don't know, things. And so yeah, it's an interesting place.
Great. Yeah, I'm also, I want the link shared somewhere, Alexander. And what
Yeah,
is
but
trans?
Lyubov already placed some links on the chat, so I don't know. Sorry.
What was this transhumanism cities project?
It's not a city; it's an institute of transhumanism. So the idea of beauty somehow connected for this student with the idea of transcending something that is transcending lives, something that is continues after death. So when she was looking for a particular program and typology of building, she decided that that the philosophy of transhumanism would be an interesting thing, and institution, well, which they actually, well, at least what she was saying, that they don't have an institution that would be completely working for their needs. So yeah, so she decided that it would be interesting to have this kind of institution. But the major point, of course, is to try to design a space which would communicate the idea of transcending beauty, something that is always trying to escape from being captured, something that is kind of murky and always very subtle, something like that.
Incredible. Yeah, I think I know what I will do after after the workshop. Yes. Are there any questions? I see some people writing really nice messages and thanking. But yeah, if you have any questions, we will share to all the participants materials and links, basically. And yeah, feel free to join the All Things Urban and March in YouTube. And I think also the articles which some presenters shared in the beginning, we can also share them because they should be featured. Yeah. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to do it now because